My Lords, I too would like some clarity on this bill. For example, there are some key exemptions in here that cut out important issues and some key omissions that mean this new subsidy scheme misses a huge opportunity to support levelling up, support net zero or support innovation of any kind. I have 5 questions for the Noble Lord the Minister, and I'm sure he won't be able to deal with them this evening, but I'd be happy to have them in a letter. Now, the bill contains principles that energy and environmental subsidies have got to adhere to, and some of these principles are very welcome. For example, subsidies must not relieve polluters from their liabilities, and caps can be put on maximum CO2 emissions eligible for electricity generation subsidies. All good. However, and here's my first question, I don't understand why these principles are carved out as only applying to energy and environment subsidies. Why aren't environmental principles being applied to all subsidy schemes so that we can ensure that all public money is being used to move towards net zero and tackle the climate and ecological crises? Every subsidy should increase the level of environmental protection as compared to a baseline situation, or at the very least, no subsidy should be granted that will reduce the level of environmental protection as compared to baseline. Now, my second question. The confusion is further compounded by the absence of any definitions for what constitutes an energy or an environmental subsidy. It's not at all clear when these special circumstances, special principles, do or do not apply. For example, is a scheme for discounted bicycles an environmental subsidy, subject to those extra principles, or not? Does it depend on whether the scheme is intended to get people to drive less or drive the same amount but cycle just for fun? I can see quite a lot of legal battles in the future for this bill when we try to apply it. And my third question. We know with certainty, because the bill tells us at clause 51, that nuclear energy is not included in the energy and environmental subsidy scheme. Now, I'd really like to know what the government's justification for this is. Is it because they believe that nuclear energy will fall foul of the principles, such as fair and competitive processes, or increasing the level of environmental protection? Nuclear energy subsidies are a huge amount of money. We're talking about many billions of pounds. So it's very important to understand why this is being excluded from the provisions that apply to all other energy sources, especially renewables. Is it giving preferential treatment to nuclear? Rather looks like it, doesn't it? I will probably table an amendment on this at committee. Now, my fourth question. Another notable carve-out in the bill, which my noble friend Lady Bennett has already raised, is that none of the subsidy rules will apply to Bank of England's monetary policy transactions. Again, I'd like to understand why this is. Greens have long understood that monetary policy should be a major tool in tackling the environmental and climate emergencies, such as, for example, directing the bank's cheap credit towards environmentally sound lenders, or at the very least cutting out the most environmentally damaging lenders. Now, question 5. I'd like to find out more about the community energy schemes, which I thought were happening a long time ago. They have obviously environmental and social benefits, and there's a low risk of distortive effects on competition. So if the Noble Lord could tell me what's happening with them. I'm likely to table amendments on all these issues, and it does strike me, and I hate agreeing with the Noble Lord Forsyth, but he is absolutely right. When the government brings us a thin bill like this, we are going to put in a lot of amendments just to try to understand what's going on. And, of course, then we get the blame for slowing down the business. So perhaps the Noble Lord the Minister could be very clear that we need enough time to debate this properly and not take it late at night, as is the government's usual practice when they want us to hurry up and stop talking. So what this bill is really lacking is that overarching sense of using monetary and fiscal policy to transform our economy from a dirty, polluting one to a clean, green, high well-being society. The mechanisms in this bill won't achieve that and really just lack a bit ambition. So I'm looking forward to working with Noble Lords, even the Noble Lord Forsyth, in actually proposing major changes to this bill so that we can get back on track to reach net zero.